Okay, so by now you know about cookies. Let's talk about another method of making data available to multiple pages of a website and that is called sessions. So the premise is in sessions, data is stored in server and not in browser. And a session ID or session identifier is used to locate a particular user's record. The session ID is stored in user's browser via a cookie. Okay, so each session has a session ID or session identifier that is normally stored in a user's web browser via a cookie, but the sensitive data like the user's ID remains on the server. So the idea is all the data remains on the server. Just to make a relation with that data, just a cookie with session IDs is stored in the browser. So this is how it works from the client. When the first time the PHP page is accessed, the server sends a session ID in a cookie. And next time when the client access the page again with a cookie that has the session ID, the server responds back with the data. Okay, so this is how this works. So obviously the question might be, why do we need sessions when we already have cookies? Generally speaking, sessions are more secure because all the sensitive information is stored in the server. And obviously, since all the information is stored in the server, not in the browser or client, there is more space in the server, so more data can be stored. And the third thing is sessions can also be used without any cookies, where the cookies also had their own advantages. First of all, everything was on the client side, so it was easier to program. And the same advantage can be said as it requires a lot less of the server, and also it could be set to last longer. Okay, so let's see how we can start a session. So each PHP page that will use the session, they must begin with this call, session_start, with this function call. So when this call happens, it either starts a new session or access an existing one. And this function must be called before anything is sent to the web browser. Okay. So basically, suppose if I go back to the diagram, first time when I'm accessing the page, I must have called in this page, there must be a call made to session_start. Okay. And once that is called, a new session is started. So when this session_start gets executed, it will attempt to send a cookie with a name PHP sesh ID, which is the session name, and a value of something which is 32-bit hexadecimal letters. And once the session has started, the values can be registered. So the values can be registered with a global variable $_session, and then you have the name. Okay, and you can set those variables. And let me show you an example, and with example, I think everything would be much more easier. So here you can see we already have a project. We named the project sessions, and then we created the projects and we pasted all the associated files. I'm going to share the files with you. Make sure that you create the project and copy the files. And then the first file that I'm taking a look at is login.php. Okay, so this is login.php. Let me close some others. So what this login.php does, okay, let's take a look at this one. So what it does is you see it requires two other PHP functions. So first one is login functions.inc.php, and the second one is MySQLi Connect. So this one, obviously, this is use MySQLi Connect. This is used to make a connection to the database. So locally, my database doesn't have any password, so that's why I'm keeping this empty, but your local databases probably have some password, so you have to put the password in here. And so let's go back to here. And the second file that it requires is login functions.inc.php. So this is a kind of a library file. By library file, I mean that, so this function, as you can see, this one has two methods defined in it. So first one is function, first one is called check login, and the second one is redirect user. So these two functions are defined in this file. That's all this file has. So once I add this file, once I add this file to login.php, what happens is now I can call these functions because this is being added as, sorry, yes. So since this is now, okay, so I can call these two functions. Sorry, login functions. Yeah, I can call these redirect user and check login, these two functions. So let's see what this check login does. So what this check login does is it checks whether any of the fields like email, password, any of the fields are empty or not. If this is not empty, then it actually creates a connection to the database. Okay, so let's go back to the login.php. So as you can see, we first include these files, and then we use this check login function that was defined in login functions.inc.php, right? And I put my parameters inside, and then I see that if this is successful, so I return the data from this check login. So if I go to check login function, you see this one returns, if successful, it returns true, and then it returns a row of data. If unsuccessful, it returns false and errors. So I go back here, so I see if it is true. If it's true, that means the connection is successful. In that case, I start a session. So you see, I start a session with session start. And then, so I start a session, and then once I start the session, there will be some cookie set, right? As we said, I am going to show you the examples. And after that, what you can do is from these data, you see, we get the user ID and the first name. Using these data, I can assign values to session variables. So these are the two session variables, okay? So let's see, let's take a look at the example. So you can see this is, let's go to login.php. And I am going to show you the developer tool. So the application, you see in the application tab, you can see we have the list of cookies for these file. So far, you don't see anything, right? Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to log in using my username and password, which I already have set. Okay, so now you see what happened is this file was executed, right? Login.php was executed, and the server actually sent a cookie. You see that it sent a cookie with this name php sesh id and the value, right? You can see that. And you see now we are actually redirected to logged-in.php. So this is what happened. So we are in login.php, right? And as you can see, we this one had this page, login page inc. So we were actually seeing this page. This page had the email, password, and submit, right? Okay. And then once I clicked on submit, this thing became true, right? So what happened is these two files were included, and this check login function was called, which is defined in login functions.inc. And obviously I had put the correct username and password. So this one returned as true, and this one gave me some data back, right? The data was, you see the email address and the password, right? That was the email address and the password. And since this was successful, login was successful, we started a session, and this one triggered this thing. So this cookie was now sent with a value. You see, this is the value. So this cookie is now being stored in the browser. This is the session ID. So a session has been created. Every data is now stored in the server. The only thing that I have here on the browser is this session ID. And using this session ID, I'll be doing my stuff. Okay, so if I go back here, and then from the data array, this one has this user ID, right? So this one returned the user ID from the database. And also this one returned the first name from the database. Okay, and these two things are now assigned to the session variables. We call them user ID and first name. And then we do this redirect user thing to loggedin.php. So you see this redirect user is also here. So this was the call for redirect user. So what it does is just shows me the index.php. That's it. Okay. Yeah. So I am redirected to loggedin.php. So from login.php, using this function, I'm redirected to loggedin.php. Now here is the important thing you can see here. So since I have this session start at the beginning, session start call at the beginning of this loggedin.php. So this is going to use the same session ID that is already in the browser. So it will use the same session ID. Okay. And the next important thing is, you see here, it will show this thing logged in, and it will show the header.html. And here is the thing. So it shows you are now logged in since it's in the same session. You see, this one also had session start at the beginning, right? So it will get all the values from the same session. So these session first name is already assigned, right? So it will get that value and show you are now logged in. Not only that, it will create a link to logout.php. So you see here that, okay, so this variable now can be used, and it will create a link to logout.php. Okay, so you can see that. So this is the thing. So it will show you this, and also it will show you the header.html. So two things. So let's go and check. So you see everything we are seeing here is from header.html, and also this function, like you are logged in. So this name actually is stored in the session variable, and we got it from the database. And then a logout link is created. Now let's go to the index.html, and more interesting thing is waiting for you. So if I go to index.html, so sorry. Okay, so let's go to index.html. I think it's htdocs and then sessions. Yeah. Okay, so sorry, not index.html, it was header.html. Okay, so here you can see that here there was a if function. It says if session this variable is set, then it will show a link to logout.php. But if the session variable is not set, it will show a link to login.php. So you see that the session variable is set. So that's why we see logout.php, right? So if I click on logout, what happens? So if I click on logout, okay, so what happens is this one will first check if this is already set. It is not set, right? In our case, this is set, so it will go to else. So first of all, you see this one also has this session start function call. That means it will use the same session. And then it will check if this variable is set, which is true. And then we'll come here. So it will clear all the session variables. It will call this session destroy, and then it will call this set cookie, and this will reset this cookie. This is a cookie name and there is a timer, right? So basically this will destroy the session. So let's click on this and see what happens. So I click on this and you see already we have this cookie, right? So I click on this and now you see some changes. First of all, this cookie is gone. Second, this one is changed to login. So what happened there? Let's go and check the code here. So obviously this cookie session is destroyed. So the cookie is gone. You see that, and session variables are like gone. And you see this log out.php. This one also had this header, like header.html. So if I go to header.html, you see here that it always checked if the session ID is set or not. If this is not set, it will show you login.php. If this was set, it would have showed you logout.php. Now, since I have done the logout, I have destroyed everything. I have emptied out these session variables. It will come to else, and it's now showing you login.php. Is it clear now? Okay. So if I do login again, what is going to happen? A new session is going to start. You know, this call, if there is no session, it will create a new session. But if there is already a session, it will use the existing session. It won't create one, okay? Okay, so this time there is no existing session. So if I click, if I do login again, a new session will start and these variables are going to be set. And because of that, I will be redirected to loggedin.php. So loggedin.php is going to check if the variable is set, and then it will show a link to logout.php. So let's do it again. So I'm clicking on login and I am again logging in. So you see this new session is set. I got a cookie in the browser, right? And I am redirected to loggedin.php, and this one now shows a link to logout. And if I click on logout, or if I click on logout here, everything is going to be destroyed. And once everything is going to be destroyed, I will be just seeing the header, right? Or be just seeing the header.html, and this one will check, hey, is it already gone? In that case, it will just show you just this login.php. So this, if I click logout, login will be shown again, right? Okay, so that's it. So let's go back to the slides again to summarize this. Okay, so accessing the session variables. So as you see that session.start function session.start will give the current script access to the previously started session, right? If the current session ID cannot be found, and the new session ID will be generated, right? So that's exactly what we said. And finally, how to delete the session variables. To delete the individual session variables, you can always use this unset function, just an individual one. Or you can delete the entire session array using this call. And to remove all the session data from the server, use session underscore destroy. We showed you this, calling this function in logout.php. And finally, we want to also delete the cookie, the PHP sesh ID, right? We also set a timer to delete that. So that's it for session. I hope you understood how we can use sessions, and thanks everyone for watching.